The small town of Belmonte, surrounded by snow-capped mountains and adorned with Christmas lights, looked like something out of a postcard. The streets were narrow and charming, with fireplaces burning in the houses and the sweet aroma of cinnamon cookies and hot chocolate invading the air. In this cozy and lively setting lived Anna, a woman with a generous heart, known for opening the doors of her home to friends and family during Christmas and Thanksgiving. Anna was always seen as a strong and organized woman. Her house was the meeting point for the end-of-year festivities. There, laughter echoed, children ran across the soft living room carpet, and adults gathered to talk about the year that had passed. That year, however, something was different. The joy that usually filled her heart seemed to have been replaced by a silent restlessness. She couldn't explain what it was. Everything was seemingly in order. The Christmas tree was already decorated with white lights and bright red ornaments. The dining room table was already covered with a Christmas tablecloth, and the Christmas stockings were hanging on the mantelpiece, waiting to be filled with presents and sweets. But even with everything ready, Anna couldn't feel at peace. It was during a cold November afternoon, while she was putting up the Christmas decorations, that this feeling became stronger. As she passed through the living room, her gaze was drawn to the corner of the room. There, leaning against the wall, was an old lamp that she had promised to fix more than 2 years ago. The dome was bent and the base was slightly cracked. For some reason, that day, the lamp seemed more visible than ever. It was as if it was screaming for attention. Anna looked at it for a long time, and for the first time thought, "Why do I still have it here?" As she reflected, her gaze was drawn to another point in the room. The mirror next to the entrance door. It too had a thin crack in the bottom corner, but Anna had always thought it was no big deal. She passed that mirror every day without thinking much about it. However, at that moment, the crack seemed bigger. Not just bigger, it seemed more visible, more uncomfortable, as if it reflected not just her image, but a part of herself that needed mending. She ran her fingers along the crack and for a moment saw her distorted reflection. That image stuck in her mind. "I'm not like that," she thought, but somehow that fragmented reflection seemed like a metaphor for her own life. There were little cracks in it too, unresolved pains, postponed decisions, and parts of herself that she ignored. Later, as she walked down the corridor, she saw the pile of papers piled up on the desk. The cake of old bills, supermarket flyers, and recipe notes had been there for so long that she didn't even notice it anymore. Every time she looked at the mess, she said to herself, "I'll sort it out later." But the later never came. The pile of papers seemed to grow on its own, as if each day more items would magically appear. Every corner of the house, which had once seemed like a space of comfort and welcome, now seemed like a reminder of things that hadn't been resolved. It wasn't the lamp, the mirror, or the papers. It was what they represented. Little knots in her life that were never undone. Anna began to realize that it wasn't just a physical mess. It was an emotional mess, invisible, but present. That evening, as the silence took over the town of Belmonte and the snow fell softly outside, Anna sat in the living room armchair with a cup of hot tea in her hands. The scent of chamomile filled the air, but her mind was far from at ease. The images of the broken lampshade, the cracked mirror, and the pile of accumulated papers kept popping into his head. It seemed that what had previously been invisible had suddenly become impossible to ignore. She felt as if God was trying to tell her something. There was a restlessness in her heart that she couldn't silence. She picked up her cell phone to distract herself. She opened the social networks and started scrolling, but nothing interested her. Then a video appeared. The title seemed to have been written especially for her. The 7 things that block your energy and sabotage your divine purpose. Without hesitation, Anna clicked play. The serene face of a man appeared on the screen. It was the spiritual leader, George. He spoke with a voice that was firm and welcoming at the same time. His words carried the weight of a truth that needed to be heard. He wasn't just speaking to Anna's mind, but to her heart. Right at the start, George asked a question that penetrated like an arrow. Chosen one, have you ever stopped to think that your home reflects the state of your heart? Anna's eyes widened. She hadn't known that made sense until she heard those words. George continued. Broken objects, accumulated clothes, and damaged furniture are not just physical things. They symbolize what you haven't yet resolved. They are the marks of unfinished cycles and old versions of you that no longer fit. What you keep at home could be holding back your energy and preventing God's blessings from reaching you. Each word seemed to describe exactly what Anna had felt that day. The lamp, the mirror, the clothes she no longer wore, her father's broken radio. It was all part of the scene that now seemed to be crying out for change. George began to list the 9 things that needed to be removed. Each item was a revelation. Accumulated clothes that we no longer wear. Anna immediately visualized her closet. There, clothes she hadn't worn for years were still taking up space. Some still had tags on them, clothes bought for special occasions that never arrived. There were pieces that no longer fit her, but which she kept just in case. Each one was a reminder of a past version of herself, of a person who no longer existed. Chosen one, these clothes represent old versions of you. God doesn't want you to go back to the past. He wants to give you new clothes, but you have to free up the space. That hit home. Every time she passed that pile of papers, she thought, I'll sort it out later. But the later never came. George explained that by keeping useless papers, people also maintain a pattern of procrastination, a cycle that affects not only the house, but also dreams, projects, and even prayers that never get off the ground. 4 damaged or broken furniture. Then came the part that hurt the most, the lampshade. George said, broken furniture symbolizes areas of your life that you've been ignoring. Repairing or removing this furniture is a way of saying to yourself, I deserve the best. It was exactly what she needed to hear. The lamp had been there for years, broken and crooked, but she had gotten used to walking past it every day. Now she realized that living with a broken lampshade was unconsciously accepting that it's okay to have something defective in my life. But now she wanted something different. 5 objects associated with negative memories. When George talked about the objects of negative memories, Anna remembered a box she kept in her bedroom closet. Inside were letters from a past relationship that ended bitterly. Every time she opened the box, her heart squeezed. But she told herself, I can't throw this away. But George was direct. If you keep objects that bring sadness, you're keeping the pain alive. Don't let the past define your present. Release what's not good for you. She knew she had to open that box and let it all go. What was stored there wasn't love, it was hurt. And real love never needed a box to exist. 6. Stopped clocks. George also talked about stopped clocks, symbolizing frozen time, the fear of moving forward and stagnation. In the kitchen, Anna had a wall clock that stopped working months ago. She had never changed the battery. And now it all made sense. Keeping a clock stopped was like saying to time, I'm not ready to move on. 7. Items from addictions or harmful habits. Finally, George talked about objects that remind you of vices and negative habits. This could include bottles of drinks we no longer drink, leftover food piling up in the kitchen, or objects linked to old habits that don't do us any good. Each of these objects is an invisible anchor that keeps us tied to what God has already freed us from. After the closet, Anna went into the hallway. There was the table with the pile of papers. This pile seemed to have a life of its own, because no matter how hard she tried to organize it, it always grew again. Each sheet seemed to be a reminder of something she had left for later. Old bills, guarantees for products that no longer existed, notes from courses she hadn't completed, and papers from supermarket promotions. Anna pulled up a chair, sat down, and began the process. It wasn't going to be easy. For a moment she wanted to give up, but she remembered what George had said. Accumulated papers represent postponed decisions and mental clutter. What accumulates in the house accumulates in the heart. With each discarded piece of paper, she felt the weight of procrastination fall away. They weren't just sheets of paper. They were silent reminders of things she had promised herself she would do, but never did. Anna realized that, just like the papers, there were dreams and projects that she had put off for too long. As she tore through the old bills, she had a deep thought. She remembered how, years before, she used to put off her own dreams because the time wasn't right. She saw that many of the papers in her life were not just water and electricity bills, but were the goals and desires she had filed away, waiting for the right time to realize them. When the table was clean, she looked at the empty space and understood something important. It wasn't just the table that was clean. Her mind was too. Now it was time to take care of the lampshade. That object had a strong symbolism. It had been there for 2 years, broken, always waiting for a repair that never came. It was a perfect metaphor for so many things in her life that she insisted on fixing later. But this time, something changed. Anna looked at the lamp and saw that it no longer needed to be there. She felt it was time to stop fixing things that no longer have a purpose. She held it with both hands and took it out of the house. She didn't look back. She felt a mixture of relief and freedom. She realized that she often spent her life trying to fix what no longer needed fixing. Relationships, plans that no longer made sense, guilt that wasn't hers. There were things that needed to be left behind, not mended. At the end of the day, Anna went into her room and approached the closet. At the bottom was a box that she had avoided opening for years. It was a box of memories. Letters from an old relationship. Photos of moments that once meant happiness, but now only brought pain. Anna put the box on the bed and took a deep breath. She knew it wouldn't be easy. When she opened it, the smell of old paper reminded her of the past. She picked up a few letters, and, as she read the words, she felt a lump in her throat. For years, she had believed that by keeping these letters, she was preserving good memories. But now she understood. It wasn't the memories that were there. It was the pain. She remembered a phrase from George. If you keep objects that bring sadness, you are keeping the pain alive. Don't let the past define your present. Without much thought, Anna closed the box and took it outside. This time there was no doubt. It was the end of that cycle. It wasn't the end of love. It was the end of pain. True love never needed letters to exist. It lived inside her. Anna's house was different. The air seemed lighter. The silence, which had once been heavy, was now full of peace. No broken lampshade, no piles of papers, no old clothes taking up space. The house was breathing, but more than that, Anna was breathing. That night, when she went to bed, she realized that something had changed inside her. The things that had previously taken up space in the house were just a representation of what was taking up space in her soul. By releasing the objects, she had released parts of herself. Anna laid her head on the pillow. Her heart felt light and, before going to sleep, she said a prayer. Lord, I've done my part. Now I'm ready for whatever you want to give me. Thank you for showing me what I didn't want to see. Thank you for teaching me to let go. The next morning, the sun rose with a different light. The Holy Spirit had taken up residence there, and Anna knew God's new was coming. Anna's story is, in fact, the story of many of us. We keep clothes we no longer wear, accumulate papers, and let broken objects take up space in our lives. But this doesn't just happen in the house. It happens in the heart. God invites us to a new time. He wants to pour the new into your life. But for that to happen, you need to make room. There's no point in asking for new things while refusing to let go of the old. Like Anna, you too have been chosen. God wants to clean not just your house, but your heart. And He has a special invitation for you. The Chosen Devotional, 40 Days with Jesus. This devotional is a journey of transformation. In 40 days, you will be guided by Jesus' teachings that will touch your heart, inviting you to leave behind the old and prepare for the new. Each day is a chance for liberation, renewal, and spiritual growth. If you've come this far, know that it wasn't by chance. God is speaking to you. He is saying, "Son, let go of what is broken. Let go of what no longer serves you. Make room, because what I have for you is greater than anything you've ever lost." Now, I want to invite you to reflect and take action. What do you need to let go of today? Write it here in the comments. Which object in your home symbolizes something you need to release? What in your life do you need to let go of? Share your story, because like Anna, you are not alone. God is with you. And when you decide to make room for the new, the miracle happens. If you want to take part in the Chosen Devotional's 40-day journey, start today. Make this moment the milestone of a new phase in your life. You have been chosen. God's new is coming. Be ready to receive it. Leave your decision in the comments. What will you release today? I, George, am here with you on this journey. May God bless your life and fill you with strength to make room for the miraculous. Welcome to the new. Your miracle is on the way.